I am so excited to talk about this trip coming up in 2026. I'm here with Michelle Peters, owner of Watergirl Quilt Company, and also here with Scott Waldron of Gravitate Travel. Now, these are the two key players, and Michelle has invited me to come. I'm so excited about this trip. I cannot wait to go. So let's start off by talking about some of the inspiration behind this trip. So, Michelle, what inspired the choice of Japan for a stitching cruise?
Well, Brandy, not everyone knows this, but I was actually a second language teacher for 25 years, and I started my career working at Nagoya International School in Japan, where I taught for 6 years, and I fell in love with it. It's like my second home. And I thought I have to take stitchers and sewists and quilters there when I go back to visit because it's such a culturally rich country and so fascinating. I'm very excited that I'm going to be able to show people the other place that I think of as home.
Yeah, so it's a quilt travel destination that's really close to your heart, right?
It is.
Okay, so what's one of your favorite memories of your travels and life in Japan?
This is so hard because it was a very monumental time in my life. But you know what? There's two that really jump out at me. One is kind of humorous, one's more serious. So I used to live near a beautiful temple. You'll want to visit the temples in Japan. The architecture and the gardens are spectacular. And if you are a spiritual person, I think you'll find them to be very peaceful. So I used to go to my local one all the time and sit there on a Sunday to relax and be quiet, just be in my space. And the monks would always be coming and going, and they're supposed to just stay, you know, within themselves. And after several visits, one of them looked at me one day and quickly smiled at me and kept walking. And that was like my dearest memory of Japan, that it was like he was aware of me and we both shared a love of that peaceful place. My other great memory are the cherry blossoms, and we are specifically doing this cruise during cherry blossom season because when you walked through a park and it's like snow coming down, but it's those cherry blossom petals. And you see the children like sticking their tongues out like we do with snowflakes here. And you see the joyfulness of everybody because spring has arrived. You just can't beat it. I love it.
That sounds so great. It's the right time of year to go, right? Okay,
It
so
is.
how does Japanese culture and textiles influence the cruise experience?
Well, so Brandy, you and I are going to be delivering a fabulous curriculum to the people who sign up to do the stitching activities with us. So what we are going to do for our guests is we're going to be sharing some experiences from Japanese quilters that Quilter on Fire and I will be connecting with, and we're going to have a lovely presentation for you about how Japanese textiles influences our North American sewing and quilting styles. But what we've done is we've put together a selection of classes for you that are hand stitching that will allow you to slow right down, to be in a quiet, relaxed place. And really, that Zen like experience is what I think of when I think of the traditional Japan.
Yeah.
But the fun part is, Japan is also a big, bustling country as well. And so that's going to be part of your experience when we guide you to go visit textile places on land.
Yeah, so it's all going to be hand stitching. There will be no machines, and all
Correct.
the classes and lectures are going to be Japanese inspired.
That's right. So we're going to be doing, well, Brandy, you're going to be teaching us how to use Inktense pencils, which are a watercolor pencil. The whole watercolor is very popular in Japanese arts. When you look back to woodblock painting, there was always that watercolor that they would use. So we're going to apply that onto fabric and do some flowers, perhaps some cherry blossoms.
Yeah.
We're going to use Japanese inspired textiles in some of the projects that we're presenting to you. And we're going to do sashiko stitching, all kinds of great, lovely, just feel the fabric kind of projects.
Yeah, feel good stitching. Okay, so do you
Mhm.
think there's any kind of recommended skill level, or can beginners get by?
You know what? I would say The only skill level you need is a positive attitude, and everybody can have that. No, because this is hand sewing, and I should mention, we're including all the supplies for the projects in your stitching fee, but this is hand sewing, painting with the Inktense, English paper piecing. We're doing everything and we're taking it from the ground level up. So we're really going to teach to all abilities. And so if you've never done any of these types of activities, this would be a great time to get started
Yeah.
because the supplies are included. We're taking it right back to basics, but we're also going to show those more experienced people, we'll teach them some fancier stitches, for
Yeah,
example.
absolutely.
Yeah,
And both of us have the same kind of teaching demeanor where nobody suffers in silence. So if you're struggling with anything we're doing, we will be there to hold your hand. Okay, so
absolutely.
I want to stop and just jump out of the sort of inspiration behind the trip and head on over to Scott to answer some questions about the actual logistics of booking this trip. We're going to get back to Michelle
Absolutely.
and talk about shopping and other fun things as well, but let's go over to Scott. So, Scott, tell us about this cruise and what does the group rate include?
Thank you. The group rate, because we blocked it so far in advance, as a lot of people who know who are cruisers and maybe those that don't, normally if you go on a cruise, you have to buy a drink package and Wi-Fi on top of your cruise fare. Well, because we blocked this so early, we got in on a really, really, really good rate with Celebrity Cruises because we're going to be sailing on the Celebrity Millennium. And our group rate includes the classic beverage package per person and basic Wi-Fi included in the rate, which is a savings of about 1,500 Canadian per person.
Wow.
So that is automatically included because we literally blocked it the day that the sailing got released. And I maxed out the maximum number of cabins that we could block for the cruise, and it's doing very well.
Yeah, so Michelle, you have the right person in place here with Scott because he knows what he's doing, right? He's getting us the great deals. So,
That's huge,
yeah,
huge savings. Having just cruised, I know how much money that can cost.
yeah, $1,500. That's awesome. Okay, so Scott, which spots do we hit in Japan? Like, what are our ports of call?
Well, we're going to be sailing in and out of Tokyo, Yokohama, and Yokohama is just an area of the city of Tokyo where you're going to be embarking and disembarking. We're going to have 3 total days at sea when all the classes and the stitch and sew events will be happening. We're going to visit Kyoto, and what's great about the Kyoto stop is that we're going to be there for a full 24 hours. So from 8 a.m. on day 3 all the way till 6 p.m. on day 4. Then we're going to be visiting Kochi, Japan, Hiroshima, uh, and one destination outside of Japan, which is next, Jeju Island in South Korea. So you're getting actually 2 destinations for one. And the Jeju Island area in South Korea is supposed to be like their playground where they go to vacation in South Korea. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that. Then we head back up to Japan and we hit Nagasaki, Kagoshima, then another day at sea, then Mount Fuji, then all the way back to Tokyo after the 12 nights.
Oh, that sounds so great. Okay, so as of kind of mid-October when we're recording this video, how many are sold out so far? Do we have room left?
We, out of the 53 cabins, we only have 26 left.
Wow.
26 booked, excuse me, out of 53 cabins. My apologies.
Wow.
So we're well over halfway there. And the way it's trending, we're getting 2 or 3 inquiries a week. So it will very likely be sold out before Christmas.
Yeah. And we haven't even released all the excursions. They're all well in the plans. And
Correct.
so what's going to happen with those? Will there be a list released soon?
Correct. So we're in what's the excursions that we're going to be offering in Hiroshima and in Kyoto, sorry, Kagoshima and in Kyoto are currently in the works right now. I'm discussing some more of those details with Michelle next week. We're having Celebrity Cruises put together the rates for us because they'll guarantee they get us back to the ship and it won't sail away without us.
Okay.
So best to do it with them. And what we'll do is that everybody that's registered, once they are done and ready to go, they'll have a Canadian dollar amount per person attached to them. We will send it out to everybody that's registered, and then we will manually add them on based on their interest to their reservation. They'll need to pay for that up front, and they'll be the first ones in the know to get that booked. There will be limited number of spots available. Based on occupancy, and the same for the pre-night extension as well too.
Okay, so what about singles? Can they book now and then add a friend later?
Absolutely. And I would actually highly encourage that. So if you're a single traveler and you want your own cabin, fine, secure it now. That's great. But if you happen to find a family member or you don't want to be a single cabin but want to share it with someone else, there's two options. So I would say secure your cabin now and look for a family or friend to come with you, but be okay with the rate that you're securing now. And the reason why I say secure now is to ensure that you get the cabin type that you want.
Yeah.
Right. So, for example, all of a lot of people want verandas, a lot of people want ocean views or insides or whatever. So grab the cabin that you want now, pay the deposit as a single, and if we need to add someone in, we can later on, but that needs to be done about 60 days prior to departure. The alternative, which is a great service that Michelle's team offers, is that if we need to match two people up, there's a process that we can match two singles up that would like to share. And it's a very strict process
Yeah.
to make sure that we have two people that are going to get along in the rooms. And so we've got a very well-oiled machine to take care of that over at Watergirl with Michelle and Maureen.
Okay, that sounds great. I don't know if you guys
Yeah.
can hear my little puppy behind me having some dreams, but let's just keep on rolling. So, what if we have someone who's interested in coming, but they have an accessibility issue?
Oh, very good question. So we actually had that on a recent cruise that we had, where a lady had just been diagnosed with arthritis in her knees, and she didn't think she would be able to go. Well, one of the services that we offered her, because we were taking care of her flights, was wheelchair service. So we just added wheelchair service, which is complimentary by the airlines, to her file. And when she was met at the Ottawa airport and met in Vancouver and assisted all the way through right up to the taxi with her luggage, when she got on board, we had a scooter waiting for her in her cabin. So she was able to get around the ship whenever she wanted to. And she was actually able to take that scooter off the ship on the excursions. Now, one caveat with that, though, is I will tell people if you want us to get a scooter for you, not a problem. Just before you book your excursions, check the accessibility on the excursions. They'll give skill levels like low, medium, and high, for example. And then we can call us the cruise line and find out if this is an excursion that is wheelchair accessible or scooter accessible, because we need to make sure that the buses or transportation can accommodate them. And in this case, it did. For example, she was able to come off in Juneau, get on a bus, get taken downtown Juneau. And I remember her saying as she was walking with us that, oh my God, I feel part of the team. This is great. I don't have to be left behind and on the ship all the time. I can get out and see things, and was really, really a highlight for her. And she really, really enjoyed it. And this was her first cruise in a very, very long time, and she had no idea it existed. So
Yeah.
the only thing is, I would just say to tell people, tell us what's going on. We keep it private, like as long as you tell us, we can offer solutions. It's your choice to move forward.
Yeah, sounds very good. Okay, great. So, booking a cruise like this, we have to get ourselves to Japan before and the flight home after the cruise, right?
Correct. So getting yourselves there a day before, we highly recommend. So everybody should be arriving on the 8th of April. I'm currently working to try to get a hotel block to save us some money so we can, if people want to purchase a hotel with us for the night of the 8th, they can do that. That's extra. But the reason why we suggest that, and for those of you out there that are listening to this that have cruised before, you will know why, because the airlines 95% of the time get you there on time, but there are those times, and you don't want it to happen when it's on a departure from Japan where you're late. So if you don't arrive the 8th and your flight gets moved back or canceled or rescheduled, at least you'll have time to arrive on the 9th in time for our 5 o'clock departure.
Yeah.
So we highly, highly, highly recommend that people arrive on the 8th of April, and then leave when they want to. We can help them with their flights.
Yeah. Okay. So I have one more question for you before we move back over to Michelle. So
Okay.
at the end of the cruise, there's a possibility for a 3-night inclusion. So tell us all about that.
Yeah, so Michelle and I have decided to put together a optional 3-night extension at the end, because most people, if they come in on the 8th and then board on the 9th, they're not going to have much time to see Tokyo, right? So, and that's a highlight. It's the largest city in the world. So we want to ensure that people have options. So if you want to leave and go home on the 21st, fine, not a problem. You can fly out from the two airports, Haneda or Narita. But what Michelle and I want to offer is, and there'll be two options, one, which is just transfer, some sightseeing, at a hotel for 3 nights and you do what you want to do for 3 or 4 days, and then we transfer you back to the airport. Option two will be for all of us stitchers and quilters, which will be transfer from the ship, do the same excursions as the previous group, check into your hotel that night. The next day, go visit Yoko Saito's quilt store and possibly do a class with her. And then the next day, we'll be go to the Napori Fashion District and do some what we all love to do, shopping.
Yeah.
Even myself, I'm a quilter as well. For
Fabric.
those of you that don't know, we can go buy fabric together. And then we will join everybody else up on the last day and take that transfer to the airport together. So you'll have two options. So we're working on that as well, and that should be ready to go hopefully before Christmas. And like we said with the excursions, we'll put it out to everybody, give them a deadline to book, and everybody that is already booked will get first dibs first before it goes up anywhere
Yeah.
else.
That sounds so good. And it's the perfect segue into the next question I have for Michelle, which is shopping. So I'm so excited about what are some of the opportunities we'll have to shop on this holiday.
Oh, it is mind-blowing, Brandy, the opportunities. So, first off, one of the highlight stops is when we're going to Kyoto. And one of the excursions that we're working with Celebrity to put together is to actually have the experience to go do shibori dyeing to make your own piece of fabric. But you're going to want to go with me to visit Nani Iro if we have any Nani Iro fabric fans. We can go see the flagship store in Osaka. There's going to be so many opportunities to buy really unique Japanese fabrics, especially if you stay on for that 3 days in Tokyo afterwards. Napori Textile Town is a department store of 6 floors
Whoa.
of fabric. Now, you're also going to want to collect beautiful papers for like origami. You can use them in your scrapbooking or if you're a card maker. So it's not just fabric. We will get a chance to go to stores where you can buy beautiful sashiko threads though. And then you really just have to take in whatever region we are in, and I will help guide you with this. Whatever port we're in Japan, Japan really has a specialty of each area. There's always a special food to that region, and there's always a craft or an artistry skill that they excel at, because that's the nature of Japanese culture, is that they really concentrate their values in their groups and their communities on specific learnings and specific products. So it's very fascinating.
Yeah, it sounds like we're going to come home with a trunk full. So speaking of that, are there luggage restrictions on a cruise, or, like, am I going to have to bring a suitcase inside a suitcase that's empty so that I can double up on the way home?
Well, I do that, Brandy. So I will share all of my tips, right down to how to make all mix and match of your outfits so that you don't have to pack as much stuff and leave empty room. But as Scott would tell you, as far as the cruise line goes, you have to be able to fit it in your cabin.
Yeah.
You have to be willing to pay the price for the check bags on your airfare. And so, all jokes aside, Brandy, I often put an empty suitcase inside the other one so that I check one going and 2 coming back.
Yeah, that's a great
I'm
idea.
not going that far and missing out on the opportunity to
Yeah.
buy the things I fall in love with.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
kidding.
Did
Okay,
the
so
same for Alaska. Yeah.
yeah. So if travelers are thinking, I might bring my husband on this trip, what will the husbands do?
Oh, the Celebrity Millennium has tons of for the things for people to do on board.
Yeah.
There's going to be activities. For example, like on our previous cruise, there was a bunch of the guys that got together and had a little group of husbands together and just kind of did different activities on board. There was bingo. They went to the casino. They went to see shows on board. There was little different games and crafts and stuff that they do on board the ship. And a lot of them just wanted to sit and chat with each other, which was great. They went to the pub. They had a couple drinks. They watched the scenery go by from the ship. And they just enjoyed the camaraderie and meeting with new people. So there's going to be lots to do. Plus, there, in addition to the 2 excursions that we're going to be offering that are unique to Watergirl, there's going to be tons of excursions that Celebrity offers for the cruise itself, right? Like we're just adding 2 more on that are unique to Watergirl requests, but there's a lot of excursions to do. So even if a wife does not feel like going aboard to do, a wife or a partner doesn't feel like doing one of the excursions one day, the other one can go on board on their to go ashore on their own.
Yeah, yeah. So, and there's loads of things to do on a cruise like this. Like there's evening shows and there's fancy restaurants and all kinds of things that you can explore. So
Correct.
there will be no limit to the amount of fun that they can have, right?
And
Correct.
we should note too that our stitching and lectures and workshops that Brandy and I are offering, they take place like between 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. pretty much. So you can still join your companion for dinners in the evening on those 3 days as well. And you know what? My husband joined me recently for our Alaskan cruise. And it was just really wonderful to share a special experience with someone you care about, whether it's your friend, your sister. Brandy, we have some people coming on our cruise where it's mom and adult son because it's been their bucket list. Like it's gonna be a wonderful community.
Okay, so tell us a little bit, Michelle, about whether we need to bring supplies or are there kits and swag bags? Tell us about the swag bags and things like that.
Absolutely. So what we're going to do for the stitching and handwork activities is we are going to provide you with all the supplies that you need for that. So the stitching fee that you will pay will cover the lectures and classes and instruction, but it will also include the supplies. So what we'll do is we'll send that all to you ahead of time. You will have to bring it with you in your suitcase, but we're keeping it very, very small. It
Yeah.
probably only be maybe 3 pounds worth of things, right? Very small. And so you won't need to gather anything. That takes that off your list of things you have to think about. And the other thing is we always do a great swag bag.
Yeah.
Our last cruise we did to Alaska, people were so excited for the swag bags. So we have a lot of generous sponsors, our distributors who will kick in fun goodies for the stitchers as well as great things for the non-stitchers. And I should also remind everyone, Brandy, we're hosting a cocktail party for
Ah,
all of our group one evening on the ship. That's going to be great fun to get to know each other at the beginning.
yeah, that'll be awesome. So that actually brings me into my next question. You just did 2 weeks of cruising in Alaska. So tell us about the people, some of the friendships that happen on these types of things.
So the really neat thing is we did 2 back-to-back cruises to Alaska, and we found that on the first cruise, a lot of the people who joined were kind of our regular Watergirl Quilt Co crew. And so what was fun for them is they made friends who they had seen your name on social media or they've been in a Zoom class with you and now they met in person. But our second group was really interesting because we had a group of about a dozen quilters who knew each other. And then we had all these other people. And by the end of it, we have some of those new friends signed up to come to Japan with us.
Oh, that's awesome.
So we found that it was just people really struck they had that same passion for being creative and it just really brought people together quickly. We never ran out of things to talk about. It was really great. And Scott, you joined in that as a quilter, so I'm kind of sorry taking your job, Brandy, but maybe how would you speak to that as a
I
participant?
I think it was great because it was enabled me to try some different techniques on board. So the first week I was working, the second week I was technically a quilter. So it was really fun. I did the Come Sail Away with Paul Leger, and that's one that I've wanted to do, and I really enjoyed that. So I bought the kits because, like Michelle said earlier, it's one thing you don't have to worry about. So I just signed up, and it said, just give me the whole kit and caboodle. I just want to pick up one thing, put it in my luggage, and go, and I'll worry about my own clothes. And it worked beautifully for me. So we had some homework before we had to get there, like for the Alaska quilt, which was great. But it gave you the techniques that you needed to come home and finish it confidently and get that one done, because that's on a lot of people's list to get done, that quilt. So yes, and meeting different quilters with different techniques and learning things, just like when I go down to Michelle's store for classes, I learned a lot on board. Different ways to do things was definitely
And
a big, huge plus.
And so Scott makes a really great point. So based on our feedback, Alaska was our first quilting adventure we hosted. Based on that feedback, For Japan, we're just including everything for you in one bundle.
Yeah.
You can have the excitement of opening it up and looking at it when it arrives in the mail, and then put it in your suitcase.
Yeah.
Don't worry about that.
And we'll do our best to keep that as compact as possible.
We
Okay,
will.
so I have one more question before we round out this interview. And really, I mean, even though this trip is a quilt-inspired destination travel, it really is all about Japan. So, Michelle, can you tell us what are some of the cultural sites that we'll be seeing on the itinerary?
So I have to say, you're going to want to make sure you go to like the Kinkakuji, the gold temple in Kyoto, to see this spectacular gold roof and everything on it. So you're definitely going to want to see the temples. Those of you who are in better shape than I am might even want to climb Mount Fuji. I have not done that, and I do not aspire to it. I will sharpen my muscles for carrying bags of fabric from stores. But all jokes aside, I think if everybody in the world could have an opportunity to visit Hiroshima and go to the Peace Park, and we will be visiting there, and go to the museum about the atomic bomb. It is I have goosebumps thinking about it now. I have been there twice. The history of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, which we will visit, will impact you. I think you will look at the world from a different perspective after having been there. And on a more lighthearted note, when I think back to my days of walking through the streets with all the high school kids in their uniforms laughing and on their cell phones, and the way, you know, they dress, they have different trends than we do. That is just refreshing, because you're going to be in such a foreign culture. Everything will be new and exciting to you every day.
Yeah. Well, Michelle, owner of Watergirl Quilt Co., and Scott from Gravitate Travel, this has been a wonderful interview. I really encourage you, if you're watching this YouTube video right now, throw your questions in the comments. We want to answer your questions. We want to give you all the information you need. And I want to thank you both for being here for this wonderful interview today.
Thank you, Brandy. I'm
Thank you.
very excited that you wanted to be part of this adventure with us. We're going to have a wonderful time learning and laughing together.
I can't wait.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Stitch and Sail Japan with Watergirl Quilt Co. and the Quilter on Fire. Join us April 9th, 2026 for 12 glorious nights on board Celebrity Millennium. The 8 ports of call include stops such as Kyoto, Hiroshima, Jeju Island, South Korea, Mount Fuji, and more. This itinerary hits the best of Japan. With Japanese-inspired handwork on our days at sea, we will keep your hands busy and your mind immersed in the culture. And don't forget the excursions. The land activities are planned with the quilter in mind. Registration is open. You can call anytime 1-613-258-7753 or head on over to gravitate.travel and click on Tours. That's where you'll find Japan Stitch and Sail. Scott and Rafa will personally give you all the information you need and guide you through the registration by phone. Check Japan off your bucket list of holiday destinations and book your dream trip today.